Alright guys, Quantum's back here again with another Dark Souls 3 video, and this time we're going to be doing some invasions with the Astora's Greatsword. The previous video I uploaded right before this one did analyze the Astora's Greatsword in a PvP arena setting, but I also mentioned that this weapon can be useful on Hex and Spellcaster builds because you don't need the heavy stat investment in order to gain maximum scaling from this weapon, or even to wield it. And one hidden caveat with this weapon is that it does actually gain S scaling on some infusions, which actually props up the damage quite a bit. As you can see here, I'm one-handing the weapon, and I don't have enough stats to wield it one-handed, but I'm still doing 300 damage per hit just because of the massive amounts of dark damage, which doesn't get scaled down. So it can be effective on these builds. Like I mentioned before, the Zweihander is another weapon that can benefit from this as well. But this video is mostly going to be invasions of me using this weapon and just showing you that it can be effective on other builds as well. So you do not forego that ability to use heavier weapons with this class, or any class that's not basically a quality build. But the main purpose of today's video, aside from showcasing the usefulness of this weapon and its versatility, as I mentioned in the previous video, is mainly to talk about the DLC. So everyone's been waiting for this, obviously, waiting to see what changes or what new things From is going to implement in the game. And much like the Dark Souls DLC, the Dark Souls 2 DLC, as we expect, there's going to be some new maps, some new spells, miracles, probably some hexes and pyromancies in there as well. And they showcase some of that in the trailer. Now, in traditional From Software fashion, if you guys have ever followed their stuff on Armored Core or previous Souls games before, they don't really reveal too much in terms of like other games, like, oh, this is a new mode or this is what we're adding. They're more cinematic with their trailers, and they allow you, the user, to pick apart the trailer and take from it what you want or expect from it what you will. And usually From Software is pretty good on delivering the epicness that their trailers usually showcase. So I have a lot of faith in From Software. I expect a lot of cool things from this DLC. The one thing that I really hope that they include, and I know I'm mainly focused on PvP, but in Dark Souls 2 there was only 2 main bosses and then like a side boss in the DLC. And the DLC, while it was a pretty good length, I think they could make it a lot, not necessarily, well, I do wish they would make the story part harder, but I hope that they just add a lot more bosses. I know that's probably really greedy for me to want, but I just don't feel like 3 bosses does a DLC justice, especially when there's only going to be 2 DLCs. I really hope they add, like, not necessarily like a challenge mode or something like that, but just something that can really up the difficulty of this game. I mean, people often still perceive Dark Souls as being like one of the hardest games, which, let me tell you right now, it's really not. If you want, there's many more hard games out there, and Dark Souls is not really that hard of a game, to be honest. But I think that they should really live up to that difficulty standard that's really perceived by the game to the hardcore fans, because I'm sure you guys have watched streams and stuff where people are just speedrunning the game or doing no death runs. I did like several no death runs of Dark Souls 2. It's very easy to speedrun this game, Dark Souls 3. It's not really that much of a challenge, especially once you've played the game once and you kind of understand what there is to expect in future games, or future playthroughs, I should say. So I really hope they add a lot of content. And I know this sounds really greedy. I don't want them to essentially build a new game, but if you guys ever pay attention to like Street Fighter or anything like that, you know that when Capcom rolls out patches for those games, right, like major DLC updates and stuff, they change a lot of mechanics with things. So they add like they buff certain moves, certain special moves, they nerf certain things, they add new mechanics, etc., etc. I think that Dark Souls can do the same thing. And I mentioned a long time ago in one of my videos that they might be changing poise. And whether they do or don't, I don't really care. It's just something that can help freshen up the game, right? Add a new mechanic, add a new learning curve, keep the game fresh, because everybody, the PvP is kind of set in its ways now, right? Everybody knows the quality build essentially is the top tier build. Everybody knows what weapons and strategies are effective. And what Street Fighter does to prolong the lifespan of its game, it is technically a really competitive and tournament level game, and Dark Souls isn't. But Dark Souls can still follow in that traditional, adaptive or refining of the gameplay footsteps, so to speak, and really change some mechanics. Maybe enable the ability for this next DLC cycle to have weapons that have been infused to be buffed, for example. So if I infuse a weapon with dark, I should be able to buff it with dark weapon. Could you imagine how cool that would be? Because given the way that defense works in this game right now, people who infuse or buff weapons with stuff are seriously at a big disadvantage in terms of damage from pure quality builds, and that's why, you know, quality builds are so dominant. But if they allow weapons that have been infused to also be buffed, just like they did in Dark Souls 2, it would really change the dynamic of the game quite a bit, right? So I think that would be something cool or unique to include with the DLC and stuff like that. There is rumors that it's going to include a new PvP area or something, which is kind of cool. I can't wait to see what they include for that. I don't think it's going to be an arena, but it might be. I think the Dark Souls 2 concept with leveling up an arena was really cool and gaining the aura so people could see that you are a badass, you know, at PvP. I worked really hard to get the blue aura and the red aura maxed out on Dark Souls 2. You guys probably weren't around on my channel when I uploaded that stuff. A few of you were. Matt XN was one of them. He's been with me since the beginning and also donated the PC version of Dark Souls to me, which I will get to playing very, very soon. I know I've been putting it off for a while, but I really hope I get to it, especially with this DLC coming out. PC, you know, on Dark Souls 2 was so much better than it was on PS4, just connection-wise and stuff like that. And even on Dark Souls 3, where the connection does seem to be better for the most part than Dark Souls 2, you still run into a lot of unable to be summoned and stuff like that, or at least I do. And as a result, I would really like the ability to just play the game seamlessly like I was able to on Dark Souls 2 on PC. But that pretty much wraps up my video, guys, and my brief insight into the DLC. Stay tuned for more Dark Souls content, and if you liked the video, please feel free to check out the channel for more Dark Souls content and analysis, and subscribe or drop a like on this video, and I hope to do more, you know, DLC analysis as we learn more information. The drop date, I think, is October 25th, so that's pretty cool. Very, very stoked for that. Gives me a nice, good reason to stay in for the fall and winter months, just maxing out stuff and learning everything there is to know about the DLC. If there's one thing you guys know about me, I hope, is that I like to analyze things down to the T. I'm more of a practical player. I don't really care too much about frame data and stuff like that, but I care about how does something perform in the actual moment. So I look at things from more of an in-action standpoint. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I do appreciate it. Love you guys. Quantum is out.